So have you heard of Clear the List?
No.
Okay, so Clear the List is, I think it's like a website. I don't know who's like in charge of it. I don't know the charity.
Okay.
But basically, teachers can share their
your Amazon wish list, right? Okay.
Yeah, and random people can kind of like buy and send it to you and stuff like that.
That is so cool.
So I highly recommend you do that.
I was just going to say, I'm going to pull it up right now.
As a thank you for being a guest, we have a $50 Amazon gift card for you that's going to pop up in your inbox in a few seconds.
Oh
I don't know
my gosh,
when.
stop it. You're amazing.
For real. You deserve it. I mean, should be much more, but I want you also to share your Amazon wish list with us. We're going to put it everywhere.
Okay.
Because you deserve it, of course.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Wow.
And obviously we're going to boost your side hustles as well.
Oh my gosh, this is Get Your Teach On. I love them.
Okay, so you know them.
So yes, I know them.
Okay.
They do conferences all over the place.
Okay. All right. So I mean, definitely put your stuff on Clear the List, but
Yeah.
you have a gift from us, and I'm
thank
really
you so
excited for you
much.
for that.
I have to order things later, actually.
You should. Welcome to the Second Round podcast, where I get together with some of the best people I know, professionally and otherwise, to commiserate about our experiences in the workforce and say all the things HR would probably be on our asses for. So today I have with me Mrs. Summers, Kristina. No secret that it's your teacher. And we're doing things a little different. Usually I record late night, but you're on summer break, so we're doing a Monday brunch.
Yeah, we are.
What are you drinking?
Cranberry mimosa. So
Same.
cheers.
Yeah, cheers. Let's do that. This is our second for everyone listening.
Yep, sure is.
Not to be the last. But what's up? What's going on? How's your summer? When is the first day of school? Don't kill me for asking that.
God. Summer's great. I am loving just being off and not really having to report to anything. First day of school is August 3rd for teachers.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's kind of a touchy subject right now. Not ready for summer to end, but we're getting there.
When I started dating my husband, and he told me he was a teacher, the first thing that shocked me was that you guys don't go to school the same day as kids do.
Yes.
You guys have a different start date.
Yes. So we start the 3rd, and then the kids start the 10th. So
a whole week before.
Yes.
Wow. I mean, at least there's no kids around. Does it make it better?
Yes.
Okay.
But then there's also trainings that we do that kind of break up the days, which then we don't get as much time in our classrooms as I would like. So that part's a little tricky.
Anyone with eyes and ears knows that the education field has kind of been up in arms pretty much since COVID for a variety of reasons. So when the pandemic began, schools across the world were threatened and immediately closed, leaving teachers to kind of context change really quickly to become e-teachers. And although they were expected to have the same student outcomes, some parents, my mother included, pulled out their kids from school, opting for alternatives such as homeschool or private school or, private tutoring. And now we're here like 2 years later, almost 3. And we're not quite in a post-pandemic world, depending on who you ask, and the dust still hasn't settled. And you share with me what you've been seeing, but what I've been seeing is more teachers than ever is leaving the profession. And right now, Florida, where we're based in, is close to a shortage of 10,000 teachers across the state. Some states are actually willing to hire unqualified professionals as teachers just to make ends meet. And then the current salaries right now are either dipping or already below the poverty line, pushing some teachers to take up a second job. So as a teacher, tell us off the bat, are you thinking of leaving? Are you staying? No question about it. What is your situation?
So I do know of a lot of teachers who are leaving. I'm not sticking with it. It's something I've always wanted to do. So I'm sticking with it.
What are your teacher friends doing? Like, and those at your school, those you've worked alongside for a long time?
Kind of a mixed batch, I guess. I know a lot of teacher friends who are leaving, who are looking to, apply in the medical field or outside of education just to get a little bit more bang for their buck. But I do know a few teachers at my school have been there for 20, 25 years and, they just keep trucking along, and that's kind of what I want to do.
I mean, yeah, at that point they have a pension. They're very well vested in whatever options they have, which we'll discuss with. And it's kind of hard to leave, and we'll talk about too, the fact that the mentality around teachers are being made to feel that all they can do is teach. Like as if they have no other skills that are applicable outside of the teaching world. It's very culty.
Yes, which and I believe we do have skills that can be applied other places.
Of course.
This is just kind of, my classroom is where I want to hone my skills.
Yeah.
So it's something I don't feel comfortable leaving.
Yeah.
Because personally I love it too much to leave, despite all the negatives. Yeah. But I can definitely see, both sides and see how people are feeling.
Right. So take us to the beginning.
Okay.
When did you determine that you wanted to be a teacher, and did you, leading up to that, consider any other careers?
So actually, I remember in preschool, they did like our preschool pictures or whatever, and on the back, they asked you a couple questions about yourself. And I remember it being in preschool, and on that card, they asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, and I said teacher.
Immediately.
Like, I've known since I was little. I did think about going into the medical field for a while when I was in high school. I had a medical trauma that kind of poked some interest in me and just to go into that field, but education was always there for me. And I just kept going back to it. So
wow. So for all intents and purposes, you set out to do what you had to do, and you've done it.
Yeah. I was always the teacher's pet in school. I'm going to admit that right now.
Self-identified.
Yeah. So it was kind of second nature to me. And a lot of teachers always said, like, oh, you'd be a great teacher. Oh, you'd be a great teacher. So I grew up hearing all of that. And I knew I had like the leadership qualities, the organizational qualities, that kind of thing. So it was nice to hear that from them. But all of my teachers have been just amazing.
Awesome. That's good.
Yeah, I loved it all.
So, tell us about the beginning. So you've been teaching for how long?
August will be my 6th year, starting my 6th year.
So take us back 6 years ago. What was the educational landscape? How are the students developmentally, maturity-wise? Tell us, the grade you were teaching and stuff like that.
So I've always been in kindergarten. I took my position as kindergarten, been in there for the last 5 years, going into my 6th year in kindergarten. My first year teaching was really difficult for me. It wasn't what I expected. And by that, I dealt with a lot of behavioral issues that I feel like college didn't necessarily prepare me for. They taught me how to write the 5-page lesson plans. They taught me how to do this. But as far as the behaviors that I saw my first year, that was really tricky for me. But I relied on my team a lot, and I had an awesome next door neighbor teacher who kind of helped me along with management and things like that. So that was good. But yeah, it was difficult, but it was also felt good, I guess, that I was in where I wanted to be.
Right.
So I knew that.
Justified dealing with not the great stuff.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, as a teacher and your education, all you guys require is a bachelor's degree, and correct me if I'm wrong, and then do you guys have to take like some kind of general ed test or some certification test?
So when you go to school to be a teacher, at least this was my case in Florida, I went to school for the 4 years, and then you have to take 3 certification tests.
Okay.
The way that my college set it up is, in order to take a certain class at the college, you had to pass one of the certification tests.
Okay.
So they kind of rolled it into your college career. So you couldn't move on unless you passed the test. So that way when you graduated, I had my license.
Is that not the case for everyone?
No.
Is there an option to get your degree and then take the certifications on the back end?
Yes.
Okay.
Or, there's also, we've been seeing now, people can just become a teacher, apply for a teaching job. And I don't know this off the top of my head, but I think the state of Florida gives you 2 years to apply for a certification and do the test. That's kind of
crazy.
That's like a big pet peeve of mine, is just the fact that you can not go to school to be a teacher and still wind up being a teacher.
I saw a tweet that was like, if states are going to allow people that are unqualified to become teachers, we should allow people to apply and become unqualified doctors, unqualified lawyers, because at that point, that's where we're going to be. It's a really extremist view, but what do you think about the sentiment?
Right. And I say that to my husband all the time. I'm like, you wouldn't allow a doctor who didn't have his license, who didn't have anything to perform brain surgery. Like, you wouldn't. So why are we allowing people who didn't go to school for education, who don't have the background that I do, and, those of us who did go to school for that, why are you allowing them to influence the lives of children?
And what do you say to the people that are like, anyone can be a teacher, but not anyone can be a surgeon? Like that.
I think that as a society as a whole, that's where the wrong
thought process is. Yeah.
Yes. Like, teaching should be held up to the same standard as a surgeon, as a lawyer, as, those kinds of professions that we're not. So the same thing should be said for, not everybody can be a teacher. Like, I know teachers who shouldn't be teachers, but they are, you know?
I think it could be really probably upsetting and extremely insulting to the people who are in the profession and are going into the profession, like that you could say that, because...
And that I worked 4 years for to get this certification, and I did all the classes. You know, I did my student teaching, I did all this, and that helped me become the educator that I am.
Right.
Whereas those people who are just coming in have never stepped foot in a classroom before.
Right. So take us through your training. Do you have any psychological training, pedagogy training, like all of those things? And how much time do you actually spend in a classroom before you get your own?
So it depends on the college.
Okay.
I went to Florida Southern in Lakeland, and that was one of the reasons, their education program is one of the reasons why I picked them. Because freshman year, I was in the classroom.
Oh, I'm not hearing that at
No.
FIU and FAU. We're located in Boca Raton. I'm not hearing that.
No, a lot of colleges don't. You know, you wait until your senior year. And that I don't like, because what if you do all the classes, you get to your senior year, you go into a classroom and you realize you hate it. Right. So by freshman year, I was observing. I wasn't teaching, but I was at least in the classroom interacting with the kids, you know, doing things. And I had a lot of training with my amazing professors who have developed curriculums, they've developed different things. And every semester I was in the classroom. And so as you got higher and higher up in your college career, you spent more time in the classroom. Or you spent, you know, you would maybe do a lesson a week and teach that one lesson. And that might be it for that semester. But at least you got to teach it. And so that I feel like really helped me.
So already I didn't know that there was such a disparity between the trainings of people being certified to become teachers, because it's like, again, and I think we're going to make this comparison a lot. Doctors, dentists, lawyers, whatever, where they have this straight, 4 years bachelor's, 4 years professional, you do your clinicals, your training, whatever.
Right.
And it's all kind of pretty standardized across the country because, they're all held to like a higher standard and association, but it doesn't seem that teachers are the same way. Like
No.
everyone kind of seems to be doing their own thing.
Yeah, which
that's kind of crazy.
It is. And I feel like there are definitely some that do it better than others. Like I know one of my friends in college, she went all the way up to her sophomore year and then was like, nah, I don't want to be a teacher. But she had already been in the classroom for 3 semesters. So she already had that knowledge of knowing that.
And it was also like caught early.
Right. She can change her major and didn't waste time,
there's a lot of people that I'm friends with that are like, oh, and I'm not to say that I don't agree, but like college is there to make money off of you. And so maybe they do it on purpose because they're like, oh, we're going to waste your time for 4 years, bank on the fact that you might or might not like this. And then now you've got to start over. But I feel like with your school, they're giving them the opportunity to quit early on and change their context a little bit and, save their life in a sense financially. Because,
absolutely. Yeah. And like I said, that was one of the reasons why I chose Florida Southern, because I knew what I wanted to do, but I didn't want it to be, 2 months before I got my own classroom and I'm jumping in the classroom. Like, what do I do?
That's scary.
Yes.
So what is your classroom size? What is the max classroom size?
So that's a loaded question. So I teach kindergarten. I've had anywhere from 17 to 22 kids a year.
Okay.
And
then,
then,
this is kindergarten, so they're like 5 and 6.
Yes, and some are 4 when we get them.
Oh my God. Why? How?
So if your birthday you have to be 5, I believe it's by September 1st, September 15th, somewhere along those lines.
So, and that's after school starts?
Yes.
Okay.
So you could be 4 for the first 3 weeks of school. And it's funny because, and I know at least with the state of Florida, it's an average of the classroom. So we have 8 kindergarten teachers. So if we take the average of all 8 classrooms, that's the max that we can have. So as long as our average is 18, we're fine. But that doesn't
mean that someone doesn't have 22 in their class. I can't imagine never being in a classroom. And you're by yourself.
Yes.
So you don't even have, I wonder what people would think about, like, if, let's say they're not like your college, they didn't take them into the classroom while they were freshmen, but maybe you start out as an assistant teacher.
Right. And we do have a mentor program, but it's not as...
handheld.
Yeah, no. Like, I had a couple meetings with my mentor, and she's great. She's on my team. I love her. But a couple meetings here and there, and that was about it, But the day-to-day stuff was me, right?
Yeah.
Which is good to a point, but also, like, you flounder by yourself, and you have nowhere to kind of
And they're expecting untrained people who have no idea what the classroom is like to go ahead and do that.
Yes.
On top of the fact that they have no training.
Yeah, to manage, to teach, to get the same outcomes that we as professionals are expected to do.
So let's talk about the classroom management piece, because I'm hearing that a lot. Like, people who are like you, they're in love with teaching, they want to do it forever, but they're literally having to like parent. What kind of training do you have for that? And like, what are you supposed to do? Like,
oh God. So this is another loaded. There's a fine line between parenting and not acting like you know more than the parent.
okay. And discipline.
Right. Whereas I feel like I've had some parents in the past, or I've heard from friends who expect me to parent their kid. But that's not my job.
That's not your job.
Right.
Yeah.
Then there's other parents who you discipline their kid, and, you know, and I'm talking discipline, like you sit out for 5 minutes of recess.
Yeah.
Like nothing crazy.
Or, you know, you tell them they did something wrong.
Right.
God forbid.
Yeah. And then the parent gets on me, like, why did you do that to my kid? Okay, but also I need a respect in my classroom. I'm not trying to overstep, but while they're with me, they're with me.
Right.
So there's that fine line that you can't really cross. That's a little tricky sometimes.
Yeah.
And that's the hardest part, I think. If I could just deal with the kids in my classroom and not necessarily get the external input
Yeah.
from parents. And not saying all parents are like this, but
Yeah.
there's definitely some that more challenging than others that yeah, it makes it hard. Because
Yeah.
when they're with me, I want them to respect me. I want them to be able to learn from me. And when I give them, you know, something like I feel as though there should be repercussions at home. You know, as a kid, I would never, ever think to say no to my teacher. I have kids saying no to me all the time.
I've been saying this to other people. Like, I'm not saying you should be afraid of your teacher. Like, you should be scared that they're going to call your parents. You should be scared that you're going to get an F.
Right.
But they're not like that anymore.
No.
They're just like, I can do my own thing. And sometimes the parents will back them up in that behavior.
Oh my gosh, I've had more times than not that the parents back them up. Where it's like, okay, but then whatever I say means nothing. Like, whatever I do means nothing if you're not going to back me up.
You've
you know,
now
we
set
gotta
the
be a team.
expectation that your kid is going to go to school and their teacher doesn't mean anything to them.
Right.
And they can do anything and they know that they're not going to get in trouble at home, which is like a whole other thing about how you parent.
Right.
But I feel like something that has changed, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but like from when we were in school, it's like the teachers, the parents, and the students, they're all kind of working against each other instead of with each other.
Yes.
Like, teachers are a support to the parents and vice versa, and you're both working in the interest of the kid, but it feels like the kid is leading the conversation these days.
Yes, and that's one thing I try to tell my parents right from the get-go. Like, we are a team. If I come to you because Charlie did X, Y, and Z, know that I'm coming to you because I've tried to solve it on my own, and I need a team effort. You know,
Yeah.
I'm not coming to you because I hate your kid and I'm trying to tattle on them. Like, that's not what I want to do.
Yeah.
I want to work together to solve this problem or to help your child. And so I like telling my parents that up front. Like, if you don't hear from
Yeah.
me, great. If you do, I
You
wanna
know
work
it's an
as a
issue.
team. Right.
Yeah.
When I have your kid, they're my kid too for that year. So
Yeah.
I'm not coming at it because I hate your kid and this is what I got to do, you know?
Yeah.
So I feel like that's very important for all teachers to kind of establish with your parents at first. Yeah, there's going to be some parents who don't see it that way and are still going to see you as the bad guy. But at least you can say that you told them up front, we're a team.
Right. I feel like for you being a kindergarten teacher, it's also kind of nuanced because like the kids are so little. They are going to act out more than not.
Last year, I had kids who'd never been to preschool because of COVID. So they were coming into kindergarten not
So they
knowing.
don't have that practice either. The socialization or anything.
Exactly. They don't have social skills. They don't have, you know, sharing was a big thing for my class this past year. And it was like, you don't get to just take it and walk away. Like, you need to, hey, can I have this? Okay, no? All right, I'll wait my turn. Like, those kinds of social things that, or sitting for 10 minutes, you know, and not having an iPad in front of you. Like,
Wow.
that's a hard thing for them to
At
do.
5.
So I'm hoping this year will be a little bit better because these kids would have gone to preschool.
Right.
But for some kids, kindergarten is their first schooling. So
Yeah.
the acting out, you know, and I can take it most of the time. There's just some instances that it's a little much. But for the majority of it, it's expected. You know, they're 5. There's definitely their challenges there.
So, I mean, I was already going to ask you this question anyway, but you've told us a little bit about the lows of teaching, you know, the classroom management, the dealing with parents, but what have been the highs? Let's talk about the positives.
So the positives is definitely the schedule. That's one thing. That's off the bat. But I mean, just knowing the impact that you can make. That for me is like my driving force. I love knowing, especially with kindergarten, they come in and they don't know their letters. They don't know how to write their name. And by the time they leave me, they're writing 3 pages. You know, there's true a sentence on each page, but the growth is there.
In kindergarten, particularly, exactly how you say, you're actually kind of be able to see the impact right away, quote unquote, like within the year. You can see the impact, you know, as opposed to like, I don't know, teaching science in 6th grade, and maybe that person decides to be interested in science like later on. You know that you've literally changed the course of this person's life through education simply by being able to write their name and know how to read, possibly.
Right. And that goes academics, and then that also goes emotionally. Like, I had a kid last year who cried for the first 3 weeks. Like, every day refused to come into the classroom. Cried, meltdown. And by the end of the year, he cried because he didn't want to leave me. And
my God.
I was his favorite teacher, and true, I was probably one of the only teachers he's ever had, but I was his favorite.
That doesn't diminish
and so
the award.
just to see that growth of like, now he doesn't want to leave school. Yeah. But in August, he didn't want to come. So that, and then the academic growth is just huge. So yeah, I do agree. I see it right away, whereas other grades don't necessarily do that.
Yeah, it sounds
it's
incredibly rewarding.
Somewhat. Yeah. So that's definitely the high of teaching, and I just love that. Like, that's kind of my driving force.
So let's talk about probably the lowest low that everyone knows, and it's part of the reason people are leaving. Mm-hmm. The pay. Mm-hmm. You know, we actually announced to our followers, you know, on Twitter and Instagram that I was interviewing a teacher, and like, what questions do you have for her? One of the top questions I got was, how much does your salary actually cover in this market right now? Your salary hasn't really changed that much throughout this period.
No, I mean, we received a 3.5% increase in May or June, I think is when it hit our paychecks. But that doesn't really account for the 9 or 11% increase we're seeing
in the world.
Like, that 3.5% really doesn't do...
Well, it's a pay cut.
Right. So, and I did the math, and it only winds up to be an extra $60 a paycheck.
Right.
So that's a tank of gas. And if it wasn't for my husband and I didn't have a dual income house, I don't know how I could afford to be a teacher and live by myself. Like, I just don't.
I honestly don't think you could.
No.
Because, I mean, like I've said before, my husband's a teacher, and the way we structure our finances is because even though he's the lower income, he's the more steady income. Mm-hmm. We use his income first. But it's really scary, and this is what we've been discussing, in that when our lease gets renewed in December, his entire paycheck will not be enough to cover our rent.
Yeah.
And that's scary. And now it's like, okay, do I get another job, or do I change the way that I'm, you know, doing my finances. And restructuring or doing something? Because that's incredible. Like, he has a 4-year degree.
Right.
He went to college, you know, but you literally can't live your life.
No. And I mean, that's where my husband and I just moved, and where we were, they were increasing our rent $900. And if I looked at my paycheck and I was just covering rent by myself, and say that I didn't have his income, whatever, and I was paying for that rent, I think I'd have maybe $400 left over for the month.
The entire month.
Yeah.
Gas,
if I took my 2 paychecks and
groceries,
insurance, and, you know, car insurance, whatever. Yeah.
That's not a lot.
That's about
nothing.
it. I did the math this morning, and I was like, that's disgusting. Like, there's no other way to put it.
Yeah, that's disgusting. Let's go back, because I did mention earlier that some states were willing to hire unqualified professionals as teachers, which is crazy because we've already talked about like the certification part of it. Mm-hmm. But I'm also curious about like what the implications are for teachers that are staying. So you're a teacher, you've been teaching for 6 years, you've got seniority, so to speak, over me who just decided to become a teacher because why not? I don't have to get certified. I can just, do it on my leisure time.
Right.
But you and I are going to get paid the same.
Yes. Which baffles my mind. And even veterans at my school who like, yes, I'm a veteran, but I'm on the lower end of it.
Versus like people who have been in there for 25 years.
Right. She only makes maybe a couple thousand more than I do. So what's the incentive to stay? You have to love it. Like, you're not going to do it for the, great pay increase you're going to get when you were here 20 years, because that's not coming.
I know that not a single person that we know has gone into teaching to make the money. It's never been about the money.
It's never about the money.
But the way things are right now, I'm literally putting you guys in the category of priesthood and nunnery, because you're doing a public service and you have to love it, and you need to know you're going to get paid pennies.
Right.
Because the state and also the nation is willing to do absolutely anything else except raise your pay.
Yes.
They will bring in unqualified people. They will give you this insulting 3.5% raise. How are you? I mean, and the fact that people are still like becoming teachers, I'm confused.
Yeah, me too. And it just, like, honestly, I don't even know. I mean,
do you think if you were in college right now and same experience, you were in preschool, you still knew you wanted to be a teacher, do you think if you had been in college right now that you still would have pursued teaching?
I don't know. And I can't say over the last probably year or so that there haven't been times where I thought about changing my career.
Yeah.
Just because of what we give day in, day out, on the weekends, during the summer. I mean, even now, during the summer, I'm on vacation, but I'm still spending... Yesterday, I just placed an order for stuff on Amazon for my classroom that I don't even get to see for another 2 weeks.
And you're not going to be reimbursed for that.
No.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I mean, I've thought about it, but personally, I don't think I could ever leave it.
Yeah.
But
it has crossed your mind.
Yeah, I mean...
Increasingly so.
Yes, and so I don't know if I would. And when I was in college, too, even, 8 years ago, however long that was, there were people who talked me out of it because of the pay. They're like, you're not going to get paid, and you're not going to get paid. And my husband and I joke all the time. I'm like, you knew when you married me, like, I'm not bringing in the big bucks. Like,
Zach
this is what it is.
Says that to me all the time.
When I met him, I was in college, and I was like, this is what I'm doing with my life. So either you're on board or you're not, because... this is what I'm making, you know? I'm never going to be a millionaire, but I don't know.
When my husband became a teacher, they did the seminar thing. Like right before you come in, it's kind of like an orientation of some sort. And this was like peak COVID / right before, things were virtual. And I was able to be on that meeting with him.
Okay.
And it was like on the slideshow. And I have a background in stats, I have a background in analytics, and one of the first things they teach you is about like visual bias. Making graphs look a certain way that they are bigger than they are, or the increase is bigger than it is, or, to emphasize like
make
what's
it more
going
appealing
on.
almost, yeah.
For people who don't know how to read graphs, it can be very misleading. And the person hosting the meeting is like, they put up a slide and it says your salary. And in really big numbers and text, it says $60,000, which you're making a face because you know that's wrong.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But when you see the graph, it was like a pie chart, and it was like, okay, the dark blue is actual cash. The lighter blue is like what you get in incentives and the value. So they were literally saying, let's say if he gets paid, $40,000, whatever it is, to make it easy math, you were getting $20,000 in quote unquote value. So your salary was really like, it was $60,000. And I kind of was dumbfounded that they would even try to play you. But then they actually try to like play a game with you that's like, oh, you're actually like getting like $60,000.
But you're not, because that $60,000 doesn't transfer to my bank account. So like,
in no way, shape, or form, like no amount of year-round discounts at Michael's and are going to
they do not. Like, I will try and use my teacher discount wherever and whenever.
Yeah.
And funny story about that, but I went to Staples, I don't know, a couple summers ago, and I was like, hey, do you guys have a teacher discount? And they were like, yeah. And I didn't have my ID on me. And I was like, man, I don't have it. And he's like, I'll give it to you anyway, because teachers are the only one who ask for teacher discounts. He's like, no one else does. And I was like, all right, well, then here you go.
That works out. So that brings me to the question of like, what are the perks and benefits for being a teacher? Do you just use store discounts, or have you utilized other programs?
Just really the store discounts. Like AT&T does a teacher discount too, so we do utilize that.
I think you guys are considered first responders to them.
When it comes to COVID and everything like that, like we were treated as first responders. We were on the field. We were that front line, and we're never compensated for that. There are teachers who got sick and all this stuff. Like, I had COVID last year for 3 weeks and I was out. We were never compensated for that. Like,
well, also, like, let's look at nurses who are also frontline workers.
Right.
And they were being given hazard pay. But then there was also the travel nurses that the hospital where they were working at was not willing to pay them. But then if they left to like North Carolina for like a couple months, they were getting paid $12,000 a month. Where is the logic?
I don't know. And even when it came to like first aid supplies, you know, that we got everybody was all about them for COVID. I think we got 2 tubs of wipes and like 10 face masks and a face shield. Like that was it. Oh, and a privacy shield on our desk.
Yeah.
Which I never sit at my desk anyway. So
I was going to say, you guys are on your feet all the time.
Yeah.
Who does that help?
Right. So any other first, you know, aid supplies that we would need, we'd have to go out and get. Or we'd have to ask for them, and then it would take like a month to get them. And so I don't understand that logic at all. That just blows my mind.
That is
crazy. But as far as like other perks, I guess, we have the Michaels. We can get free passes to SeaWorld, which I guess I've never utilized it, but all right.
I'm just confused because it's like they're going to give you all these discounts to places that like you like have to travel to or like spend money anyways. So it's like, where is the discount? I don't
and like to rent cars, I think it's, I don't know, I forget. We used a rental car company a couple years ago and they gave me a discount because I was a teacher. But still I had to pay for it. Like, and not that I'm expecting free stuff.
You're not asking for anything for free.
But still, I was going up to New York anyway. I had to rent a car. So was it really a discount, you know? So it was just, it's those little things that, like funny. You said, they try and give it all, and it just doesn't equate to what we should be getting, I guess.
What kind of pay are teachers seeking? Are they seeking a number, or unfortunately, are they just seeking like a livable wage? You know?
Yeah, I don't necessarily, I mean, if I walked away with $100K, that would be great. But I don't necessarily think it's a number. I think it's just more of, like you said, it's a livable wage. It's something that my account doesn't have to go into overdraft because I spent $200 on classroom things. Or, you know, because I went and bought groceries. Like, that's the kind of thing that I think as a profession we struggle with. So if I could change one thing, that would probably be it. And just the respect aspect. Doctors and lawyers are respected.
Prestigious.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh, you're going to go to school to be a doctor. Wow. Teachers should get that level of respect too, because not for nothing, and maybe I'm biased, but I feel as though our profession is more important than those because we're laying the foundation for those.
I was going to say, you guys are on the ground. You guys are doing the day-to-day, and we're in a state or in a country where we're not like the first or the second or the third in education.
No, we're not.
But somehow it's like, if you don't go to college, then we're judging you. But then, like, the people that are putting forth the curriculum and laying the foundation to be interested in education and have a good education are treated like shit.
Yes, absolutely.
It makes no sense.
It doesn't. And yeah, I mean, it's exactly what you said. You know, even the board members, like the district board members, they probably make double or triple what I'm making. They haven't set foot in a classroom in over 10 years.
Yeah, and what are they doing
and
for you,
they worked
honestly?
from home, like...
She's so angry. She knocked
feisty.
over the mic.
But like they only went back to the office, I don't know, middle of last year. Whereas
and you
teachers
guys have been
were
there
on the front line, like, not for nothing, I should be making more money than what you're making sitting in your office. Like, I have so many pet peeves and I get so heated with education right now. But I mean, we're on those front lines. We're doing the things and we're not getting the respect or the pay for it.
Yeah.
And so
another thing is I find it really crazy that you guys don't get any PTO. You guys don't get, I know you guys get like a certain amount of sick days, but like, for instance, where I can take PTO because, you know, maybe I just want a day off or I don't have to take a sick day or anything,
that would
but
be
like
nice.
I can just put it in. You guys don't have that. And correct me if I'm wrong, you or someone like had like a broken wrist or something and like you couldn't go to the doctor's office or like it was weird. Like you couldn't take it. It was like a whole problem.
Oh yeah, that was me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would you mind telling us about that?
Yeah. So I actually broke my wrist at work in February.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And it wasn't an exciting story. I fell backwards on a curb and it was kind of lame. But it was through workers' comp. So I only had to go through their doctors or else they wouldn't cover it. Okay, that's fine, whatever. Well, the day I broke my wrist, I broke it around, I think it was like 10:30. Yeah, because I just picked my kids up from lunch. So it was 10:30. I left because I was in so much pain and like I was...
Well, it's broken.
Right, hello. So I went to the ER, the urgent care, whatever, and they docked my pay for they docked my days that I have accumulated for that half a day that I took to go to the doctor for the wrist that I broke at school.
Huh?
Yeah. Yeah. So I had to sign one of our temporary duty certificate things stating that I left early so they could dock those hours from my bank. And even the days, so I also had to go to their orthopedic and their everything. Their orthopedic was down in Fort Lauderdale. So, which fine.
You're not doing that on the lunch break.
No.
Yeah.
So I would have to take a whole day or take a half day. And I'm never reimbursed for those days that I took. But it's not like I was taking a day to like go to the beach. Like,
yeah,
I was taking a day to go to their doctor. Now, if I could have went to my doctor, I would have made it after school hours. 4:00 appointment, whatever.
And then you wouldn't have gotten workers. It's it's the catch-22.
So I lost probably 2 of my bank days.
Wow.
Which doesn't seem like a lot, but when you only get 10 a year, that's a lot.
Yeah, that's barely 1 a month.
Right. So yeah, I'm now 2 days less because I broke my wrist at work. So that's
insane. Do your days like roll over?
They do.
Okay.
Yes. So that is the one good thing, I guess.
Yeah, but it's like, okay, I can have a month off, but I have to come to work every day for 3 years.
Right. And then you have to prep for that month that you would take
Oh
off.
my God, the prep. Okay, tell us about that.
Yeah.
You've got your sister's wedding.
Yeah, next year.
Next year.
Yeah.
And it's not here.
No.
So you have to travel for that. How many days are you taking?
I think right now I'll probably take 4.
And you are the maid of honor.
Yep.
Okay, so you've got plenty to do.
A lot to do.
So what is it going to take for you to leave? What do you have to do?
I have to do the lesson plans, prep all the materials for those 4 days. So her wedding's on a Friday, I think. So I'll probably take off Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then the following Monday or something like that. And I have to get all the materials for those Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Mondays. Type up the lessons. Not only my lesson plans, but I'm a little OCD sometimes, and I like to make plans that are easy for a sub to read. So not my own
they're
lingo,
not you.
Right. So like pass this out at blah, 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 stuff like that, and really outline our day. So it probably takes me a good week for something
to prep for the week that you'll be gone.
Yes.
Like, are you responsible for your coverage, or does like the school like assign a sub? Like,
no, I'm responsible for that. I have a couple of subs that I will go to first that I've now gotten to know. But if you're a new teacher coming in and you don't have that relationship with the subs, you're putting into the locator and hoping for the best. And most of them are pretty good. But
I've noticed too that like the powers that be, who decide, whether you're going to get a paycheck raise or not.
Right.
It's kind of like interesting because teachers are the kind of people that are going to like want to go the extra mile. And I feel like it hurts more.
Absolutely.
Because they are the people that deserve the raise. They're not sitting on their butt. I mean, there are people that do.
Right.
Not all teachers are like this, but the majority of people that are teachers, they love what they do. They want to do it to the best of their ability. They ultimately care about the kids. They want the best for the kids, whether they're there or not. And yet they're just not seeing the pay. They're not seeing the respect. They're not. And it's almost like whoever's out there making the decision is like, oh, but this person loves it so much. They'll justify staying. They'll justify doing it because they love it. And that's enough.
And
it's
that's
not
the thing. Right. And as teachers, we always, like you said, have that expectation to go above and beyond. So now that that's the ingrained expectation, it's like, oh, okay, but that's what they do as teachers. Like, they're not in it for that income. They're in it for the outcome. I can't stand that saying, but I've heard that so many times. But like, because that's the expectation, that's what we're just...
for the income. Couldn't be me.
Nope. So, yeah, that's just kind of what we're expected to do without getting compensated. And I think now, especially since COVID, it has opened up the doors for more teachers to speak out about what's going on in the education system.
What was really crazy was that when COVID happened, you guys had to be e-teachers, and you guys were still expected for your kids to make the grades, make the outcomes, as you say, but in a completely different format and a completely different way. And I honestly thought that when every kid was sent home to be there at their house for days on end, honestly irritating the hell out of their parents, I would have thought that there would be a little bit more advocacy.
Yeah.
Once they came back, and like, for a fact, at least 50 to 75% of those parents are like, please don't ever send my kid home again.
Mm-hmm.
I never want them in my house again. Like, I can only deal with them
for so long
after 4 p.m.
Right.
And you're spending more time with their kids than they are often. And it was just like, it almost got worse than it was before the pandemic.
Yeah, to a point. I mean, I think that there has been, I think you're right. I think parents are just like, okay, well,
back to scheduled programming.
Right. Or then you have the opposite, whereas some parents have now chosen to homeschool their kids because they think they can do it better, which...
Go for it.
Knock yourself out. I don't think you can because you don't have the degree that I do, but knock yourself out, you know?
You do you. We'll see how your kid turns out.
Right. So, and not saying that I'm the end-all be-all teacher, but if you have that background, it makes a difference.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, as far as teachers go, I know a lot more teachers who are speaking out or leaving the profession because of how toxic it can be or how negative it can be. Whereas I feel like the pandemic has proved what educators have already known.
Yeah.
That it's not.
And now everyone saw it.
Right.
Yeah. And now it's like, whether you do anything or not, you know what it's about.
Right.
Yeah.
And it even helps those who are not in education. I've had conversations with family members and they're like, wow, I didn't realize this. I'm like, right. Because you wouldn't have. But like, you're welcome because I told you, you know?
Yeah.
So it's definitely, it's interesting.
Because of the district and the union's honestly failure. I'm going to call it a failure.
Right. And I will say, I'm just putting this out there. They do things for us. But there are certain things that I wish could be done.
There's a lot of things that still need to be done.
Yes.
I mean, everyone at the union is always going to be employed. I'll tell you that.
Mm-hmm.
But because there's been not a lot of income on your side, you've been, I don't want to assume and say forced, but you do have a side hustle.
I do.
And this is your opportunity to plug it. You have 2 side hustles,
yes,
actually.
I do. So I'm going to plug shamelessly. So I have a crafting side business because I'm obsessed with my Cricut. Shout out to the Michaels for the teacher discount for me to get all those materials. Right. But, I love making t-shirts and decals and things like that. So that is called Happily Crafty After. And I kind of started that middle of COVID because I was just home. And I was like, well.
Want something to do. Also, I mean, I don't want to make a stereotype or, but teachers are very crafty.
Right. And I made a lot of
stuff.
things for my classroom. So it helps save money in that aspect.
Yeah.
But I do, I've had a couple orders here and there. That's really nice. And then when I was teaching virtually last year for the district, or 2 years ago now, I really enjoyed it. So I know of this person on Instagram who I follow. She's made her entire income teaching virtually. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I got in contact with her, whatever. She teaches on a platform called OutSchool.
Okay.
So OutSchool.
I think I called it Open Class.
I did see that. And I was like, I'll just let it go.
I knew it was something.
So OutSchool is this international teaching platform that you can set up classes, teach what you want, how you want it. Yeah. You get to, determine your pay. They take,
really? Okay.
Yeah.
So there's more power.
Yes. Yeah. They do take a 30% cut. So I know. I know some teachers, I've seen them, they do like $2 classes. I'm like, right, but then you're making what, like, I don't even know. My brain is off for summer, but whatever that math is, Yeah. So I really like teaching virtual, but it's also for fun too, or for income, I should say. Just to have that extra, whether it's $100 a month or whatever, just something.
Yeah.
And then I also tutor. So any of my kids in years past, I tutor them after school. Oh, God.
How much time, obviously we know how much time you spend in school, but how much?
Mythbuster, it's not 7 to 3. I normally get there at like 6:45 and then I don't leave until 4. So that's a big misconception.
That, you're just in there for 7 hours.
Oh, you're done at 3. No, I'm not. Or like, oh, you're done when the kids leave. No, I'm not. Yeah. Anyway, I had to plug that in there.
No, for sure. So then how much time do you spend on your OutSchool and your other tutoring? I'm assuming like each session's like an hour.
Yeah. Each session's an hour. OutSchool, you can kind of, it varies, whatever I want to set the class to. Mm-hmm. So between crafting and tutoring, 8 to 12 hours a week after school doing all that stuff. Because then I have to prep, stuff for tutoring. Or I have to make the t-shirt that I'm making or, whatever. Yeah. So it's a decent amount. That's on top of, the 40 plus hours that
and the thing is, it's like, at least with the crafting, you get a little bit of variation.
Right.
But otherwise, you're teaching more.
Right. And that's also why I really like my crafting, is because it's a stress relief for me. So I can kind of do things and just zone out and I just create. And that's what I do.
Next, we're going to move into our Reddit portion, which was really great. I know you're ready. Okay. But Virginia State University, a historically black college and university,
Okay.
It's offering free tuition for a master's program if you agree to teach in Richmond or Petersburg.
Okay.
I think that's quite attractive. So tell us about what it's like for a teacher with a master's degree. Like,
So I am just speaking from what I've heard or what I've
Yes.
observed because I don't have my master's.
right.
But the increase that you get doesn't necessarily equate to the time and money you would put into your master's program.
That's immediately discouraging.
Yeah, not to be negative Nelly, but here I am. And to me, you know, if you teach K to 12, your kids don't care whether or not you have your master's. Like, they just don't. My 5-year-olds aren't going to be like,
Also, you don't need a master's to teach that.
no.
Yeah.
So to me, personally, the only way that a master's would be useful in the K to 12 environment is if you wanted to go into admin. I think.
Okay.
And again, this is just me, but that would be the only time it would be useful because it would carry a little bit more weight for you.
So I've heard that you actually don't even get the master's pay if you're not teaching in the thing you have the master's degree in. You teach kindergarten, but you have a master's in music. You're not going to get paid the master's. Like, you have to be a music teacher to get the music, which I can't tell if that's fair or not.
Yeah, I don't know either. And I can't speak to it because I don't know the specificities of that. I don't know. I get it. But also, if you want to teach at a school and the only position they have is kindergarten, but you have a master's in music, maybe you just get your foot in the door. And, you know, you teach kindergarten, and then in a year or two, you get that music position. But
Well, let's talk about that. What is something I think that's so frustrating is that there is no growth plan. You guys are teachers and you're never going to, not that you can't, but to the district and to the schools, you're never going to be anything else than a teacher.
right.
There's no growth. There's no career ladder, so to speak. It's like you've become a teacher. You're going to stay a teacher. That's what it's going to be.
Unless you had the drive to go into the district,
Right.
like a
Which
district office.
you didn't go into be a teacher to go work in the district.
No.
I feel like more often than not, people are making that decision because they just can't handle the classroom anymore. Or they're just like, I'm done with this and I don't deserve this, which is fair.
Right.
So I struggle with that because I think, yes, it would be nice. I mean, I feel like this is also a thing that's like, okay, I'll get my master's degree. I'll move to Richmond. I'll teach for, I think it's an additional 3 years, it says here.
Okay.
But again, this is like an investment because it's like, okay, I'll just get my master's degree. I'll teach for the 3 years and then I'm going to leave and then get a real paycheck for the master's that I've acquired. But then I owed 3 years to the district.
Right.
Like,
And
that's
there's
where I see, that's the only reason I can see that making sense.
And there's another program that's like that. It's through the state of Florida. If you teach in a Title I school, so it's your lower income.
I was going to say, what does that mean?
Yeah, sorry. Like lower income families, the free and reduced lunch, that kind of deal.
Okay.
If you teach there for your first 5 years out of college, you get your federal loans forgiven. But to teach in a Title I takes a really special person. I
don't know if our mutual friend worked at a Title I, but where she got stabbed. Was that a Title I school?
I believe so.
Oh my God.
I believe so. Yeah.
People are getting stabbed.
Right. And like I had my entire internship, everything that I did in college was all in Title I. The whole district was Title I.
Okay.
So that the families that I saw, the kids that I saw that came in with shoes 3 sizes too big because they were brother's shoes or
Yeah.
just didn't eat breakfast. Like that took a lot emotionally for me. And I'm lucky my school is not a Title I and I didn't go for Title I for that because it was just a lot. But yes, I mean, I think that there's things like that that are good, but it's just those who want to take advantage of it. Whereas that doesn't necessarily appeal to me because like I said, to me, if I'm a classroom teacher, the master's doesn't really matter.
What would be an incentive? What if you had to decide what could be an incentive to either keep teachers here or attract new ones? What would incentivize you?
So I think one thing that the district is working on or they're trying to do is the referendum. So
Okay.
it was put on the ballot 4 years ago. It's going to be put on the ballot in November, which I'm not a political person, but just to shout out, Palm Beach County, I would vote yes on the referendum in November. But
Okay.
it includes like police presence at schools, mental health counselors.
Okay.
And then there's also a pay increase for teachers.
Okay.
So the way that they break it down is like 0 to 4 years, I believe, you get $1,000 extra a year. That's still divided between your 26 paychecks. But then I think it's 5 to 9 years, you get $5,000.
Oh, that's quite a jump.
Yeah. And then when you get to 10 years, you get $10,000 a year.
Oh.
So that's something that I think they're trying to do to incentivize teachers, but it's up for vote every 4 years.
So let's say, I'm working in the district. I'm at that really, quote unquote lucrative, 10 years, which you're kind of close. You're 6. Yeah. So you're getting there. For years 10 to 14, you could potentially be making that extra 10.
Right.
But then the next year it could get voted out, and $10,000 disparity is kind of big.
Right. Even the $5,000, because we don't get it during the summer.
Right. So it's spread out throughout
your 22 paychecks. Okay. Yes.
So you're seeing it a little bit more.
Yes. So during the summer, I don't see it.
Yeah.
And I'm only at that $5,000 area, and I already saw a difference in my paycheck. I was like, oh, where'd my money go? I know I'll get it back in August, but still, it's like, oh.
But now in November.
Right. It's still good for this whole school year. And then come November, it's voted for the following 4 years.
Would you, I know, because you have obviously a more holistic view. You're caring about like the fact that this person doesn't have proper training to handle kids. But could you be persuaded?
Yeah, I think if I got paid substantially more than those coming in, not just a measly $200 more, it would help me a little bit. Be like, oh, okay, I'm good.
Okay. So this next one, I'm still trying to figure out which district this is. It's so funny. My district announced a way to help teachers struggling to pay their bills, dealing with inflation. Access to an online program that will allow teachers to draw funds from future paychecks.
What?
I'm poor now. And I'm going to be, future me is also going to be even poorer. How do you even manage your money that way?
Yeah, you can't. I'd love to know where that is. It's probably in some Midwest state. I don't know. I got nothing for that one. That's just.
I was stunned when I saw this. I was like, what?
Yeah, I've heard a lot of weird things.
That's like District 309. Okay, it looks like Minnesota.
All right, I was close.
Yeah, you were close.
Yep, I figured. They do weird things out there.
So someone else also commented, you have no idea. Our district turned currently unused property into low-income housing and then offered teachers first dibs on renting them.
Oh, great. Thank you. Wow. Well, and that's even in the state of Florida, we have something like that where teachers.
Oh, tell me about it.
Teachers can get, it's like a first responders community, kind of.
Which also, I'm noticing that companies are kind of at odds about whether you guys are first responders or not. Some consider you first responders and some consider you not. And sometimes Zach will go and ask and I'm like, don't be a loser.
Oh, I do that all the time. I do that all the time. I think it was Dave and Buster's we went and I was like, they had first responders and it was firefighters, military, nurses, doctors. And I asked the lady, I was like, and teachers? She was like, what are you talking about? And I was like, for the discount. She was like, yeah, sorry. And I was like, oh. She's like, is your husband military? I was like, no, I want a teacher's discount. So, yeah, I understand your husband trying to do that because I do that often. But, yeah, so Florida does have where they have certain housing developments for first responders. Teachers are under that umbrella.
Okay.
But they're in that low income, that Title I area, not necessarily the area
not a place you want to live.
Right. So that's a little.
I did see that DeSantis recently approved some kind of loan program for teachers, but it's not just teachers. I think it's also first responders, firefighters, everyone. And depending on the county you're in, that you have to meet an income level or something to be able to qualify.
Yeah.
And it was really interesting to me because, for instance, we looked into that. Mm-hmm. Now, we don't meet the income requirement because of my income. If every teacher needs to have dual income to live their life, how many of them are actually meeting this income requirement? Because it's they already weren't meeting this before.
Right.
Like, and they have to surpass it
in order
to have a living
apply.
wage. Like, and
Right.
I was confused. I was like, what I'm noticing is that like a lot of these things feel like they're setting you up to fail. Like,
I was just going to say
they don't
that.
want you to succeed.
No, but they're going to say that they offered it.
Yeah.
And it's your fault you didn't meet it. Sorry.
We were watching a reality show. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, Southern Charm.
No.
Okay, well, it takes place in like Charleston.
Okay. Love Charleston.
It's like 8 years old.
Okay.
But we started from the beginning, and there's some like drama in the group, and they don't like this one girl, and one of the guys is like, we should include her, whatever. They were going on a trip, and they're like, okay, do we invite Catherine? And everyone's like, no, don't invite Catherine. But if we don't invite Catherine, she's going to be calling me up complaining.
Okay.
So Catherine at the time is like 8 months pregnant and is on bed rest. And they're like, let's invite her. We know she can't come.
But then we can't say that we didn't.
But then it'll feel happy and warm inside. And that's exactly what happened. They called her up. She picks up the phone. She lights up. She's like, oh my God, I'm included. I'm invited. She's like, I'm so sorry. Like, I can't come. Like, I'm on bed rest. And they're like, everyone's happy.
Uh-huh. That's essentially what, essentially what majority of the programs are.
I feel like that's what this is.
They're just hey, here you go. Well, we did it. So you can't say we're the big bad people who hate teachers.
This last one.
Oh, I'm so ready for this one.
Okay, so we have...
I got so riled up reading this, by the way.
Amazing. So we're going to make you rehash those feelings.
Oh, okay.
My sister hates her job because they're requiring more of her and not increasing pay for cost of living. She's been there almost a year and works in finance. Immediately, I want to stop this.
Me too.
Because I'm like, people in finance statistically make more than like other people. So
and you've only been there a year. So like you really haven't built up a lot of seniority there.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
I don't understand why she hates it there. She watches Netflix at her desk. She has gotten box tickets to sports games and concerts 3 times in the year. Oh. And she gets unlimited sick days and works from home unlimited days.
So, fun fact, we get a discount to, I think it's the Miami Heat or the Marlins. Okay. But we get a discount. Okay. We do not get free tickets. We get discounts.
Or box seats.
Right. What the hell is that? I don't know.
Okay, ready?
Oh, God. This is
She wants to become a teacher for more work-life balance.
Jokes.
She has said on multiple occasions that she doesn't like kids.
Don't do it.
She calls kids things it frequently.
If you don't like kids, you can't be a teacher. I'm sorry. That is your job.
But I straight up feel like I can understand that you could come to hate kids.
Right.
Like, but you can't go into it hating kids.
No. So, and you can come to hate the behaviors that they might exhibit. Yeah. But you don't necessarily hate that child. Right. If that makes sense.
My sister wants to take advantage of the teacher shortage.
Oh.
She wants to go into a classroom and get an emergency certification and later work on her certification. She didn't know you needed a certification to teach elementary. I told her that she needs to try to understand the field. I told her that her issues will not be solved going into education because all those problems still exist. She said this is every job, but every job doesn't get all of our time off. I even told her that she won't be able to take PTO days during the year randomly, and she said it'll weigh out.
Oh, okay.
The perception that the summer's off is weird. It's because, like, if you got a summer off, you know, you wouldn't be having to do all this prep. You wouldn't be having to, like, and also, like, with a little bit of the loss of the income, like, the referendum doesn't apply to summer.
Right,
like,
and the trainings, I mean, I have to do a training later on this week.
So, she said that her aunt, you know, was defending her. She says, my aunt was also on the phone and defended her, saying nobody likes being a teacher, and they only do it for benefits/pension anyway.
So I know we've talked about this, but pension is not so great. You don't get as much as you think you will.
I mean, I'm curious because, like, again, when we had Kristina on, she was saying that, like, cashiers were retiring, multimillionaires, because they also have stock options and things like that.
Right.
I mean, do you have an idea of what teachers are retiring with?
No, because I've honestly been scared to look.
Oh, no.
And I know I'm so early in my career that probably have not been as on top of it as I should be, but I don't know. But I'm scared.
Yeah, you know what? We're going to live in ignorance for that one.
Yeah, it's better.
So I told Aunt that there was no way you could stay in a classroom with that attitude, which is why we have a shortage.
Because there are people at my school and at other schools I know of that only do it for the healthcare.
Okay, healthcare is valid.
Healthcare is great, right?
Yeah.
But also, like, you have to like it a little bit.
A little.
You know,
just
like,
a little.
These people come to work miserable, or they do the bare minimum just because, I need the healthcare.
Right. So she told, so the aunt held her ground, and I told the aunt she could apply to work in a support staff role. My sister accused me of gatekeeping being a teacher.
Jesus.
And making it sound hard when she's been in 3rd grade for.
Right, of course. So if you've been in the grade, you could teach it.
She said she tutored kids in college, so she could do it.
Right.
My sister has typically done things that I do, and I kind of figured that seeing me have a summer off, quote unquote, makes her want to do it. Should I support her applying for one of the 2 open 3rd grade positions at my school? Am I being unreasonable? What do you think?
There's a lot that I think about this. I understand helping the teacher shortage. However, in order to help the teacher shortage, we need people who enjoy at least one aspect of the job, not just the time you have off, and are somewhat qualified. Like, you're not, and I hear
Are you telling me that me going to school is not qualification enough?
I mean, no. I know people who, you teach kindergarten, that's so fun. You know, I have a 4 or 5-year-old at home. But do you have 22 of them?
Yeah.
And you need to teach them the letters, the sounds, how to write, how to read.
But also you're, fortunately and unfortunately, because we could talk about measures of success, but like, you're ultimately responsible about whether they know how to write their name, know their letters at the end of the day, like, and at the end of the school year. Like,
if they don't, it's on you.
If a kid doesn't know how to to read, nobody says that's the parent's fault. They say, their teacher sucks.
Right. I know we didn't learn anything that year. Or, I heard that so much when I was teaching virtual during COVID. He didn't learn anything that year. I worked my butt off for those. I had 35 kids virtually when I taught.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. And it was kindergarten, so it was a lot.
Yeah.
But, that virtual year was a waste. No, it wasn't, though, because I worked my butt off. Like, those kids are some of my highest readers. Yes, were the parents more attentive?
Yeah.
Because they were home? Could be. But they still made growth, you know? Yeah. I still held them to the same standards I would have if they were physically in my classroom.
Right.
So just because you've been in a grade doesn't mean that you can teach it. You know, it's like having surgery. Doesn't mean you could do the surgery. Like, it's, I don't know, and we go back and forth to this doctor's thing a lot, but it's somewhat of the same principle, you know?
I have seen all 18 seasons of Grey's Anatomy. I am qualified to be a surgeon.
I was just going to say, right.
I don't know what I guess like Law and Order, or like, SVU or something,
you watch
like
some
for
court
lawyer.
dramas, you can be a lawyer? No. That's not, it's not the same thing. And babysitting, tutoring, that'll give you background. Yeah. But it doesn't necessarily qualify you to be a teacher.
Yeah.
It's a lot. And there's a lot of people who just think that and have that kind of, I call it like a warped way of thinking, but just, I could do this because you can do it. And I get the weekends off. Not really. Especially the first month of school. Like, I have a friend who wants to come down. I told her, I was like, the first 3 weekends in August, you can't. Yeah. Like, it has to be after that because I know I'm going to be doing stuff for school or maybe just taking a nap because I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
So, we don't have weekends off and we don't clock out at 4 all the time. So,
yeah, I mean, we haven't really touched on it, but like also you haven't mentioned anything. And I don't know if kindergarten's too young, but like the IEPs and like, is it 401s? I don't know. What am I thinking of? IEP and something else.
504s.
504. It's individualized
education plan.
Yes. And then the 504s for
I never remember what.
Point is, it's for kids that needs extra help.
Yes.
And it's a whole specialized plan for them that you also have to do.
To follow.
That you have to follow for that kid specifically. And I know there's potential to have more than one kid that needs that
This
kind
past
of thing.
year, I had 6
out
of my 22 that had IEPs.
Jeez.
And
It's
one
almost,
with the 504 that I was starting with. So I have to, a lot of times in kindergarten, they don't come in with any paperwork. Okay. So I'm the one who starts it.
Oh my God. And you have to have meetings for these things. Yes. Like you can't just like put them on an IEP or a 504. You have to
you have about 2 or 3 meetings. And then if the kid already has one established, like I had a few from preschool, already had an IEP established, but we still have to have a meeting in the beginning of the year and the end of the year to update the IEP.
Yeah.
And that's meeting time during my teaching time or during my break.
Right. Yeah, no.
So, like, I had one meeting this year. The meeting went on for 2.5 hours. I was out of my classroom for 2.5 hours.
Oh my God.
For
That
an
should
IEP
not,
meeting.
again, that should be illegal, but
No,
you know.
because then they had a sub in there and I didn't have anything planned because I was like, oh, it'll be quick, whatever, half hour.
Right.
And it went past my break. It went past my fine arts break.
No consideration.
No, and I was like, okay. Then it was dismissal time and I knew the sub couldn't handle dismissal. So I was like, I gotta go. Like, sorry, you gotta go. They're like, okay, can you come back after you dismiss?
No.
I was like, no, I have things to do. Like, I've been gone for 2.5 hours.
Yeah. Book another meeting another time.
Exactly. So then we had to have a second meeting. And it was just, it's a lot. And it's crazy to me that it's during teaching time. Because then for that one kid, and not that I won't give my all for a kid.
Yeah.
But for that one kid, then that took me away from teaching the other 21 kids I have.
Right.
Because I was in that meeting. So, I don't know. But then again, you don't want to have it outside of contract hours either.
Yeah.
So
it's
a hit or miss.
There's no,
and you can't do it during your lunch because then you don't get to eat. Like, there's no way to win, but I think that there should be a cap on how long it kind of goes.
Yeah, I agree. So would you help this person or what would you do?
That is a great question.
I mean, a lot of responses were like, hey, you told her what it was like, let her find out.
Yeah.
But the other thing was like, we're not going to, don't recommend her because if she does a shitty job, you put your reputation on the line for her and that could potentially be
backfire on you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not that you'll get reprimanded or, whatever. But it'll be more of a distaste. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think it takes a lot for somebody to put their neck out for somebody, especially in the education field because we're so criticized. Mm-hmm. That I probably wouldn't even mention it to my supervisor or, my admin or anything like that. And if they came to me about it, oh, yeah, I know her, or, my sister, cousin, whatever it is, but I didn't want to get in the middle of it and kind of put it like that. But I would try, if she has these specific views on education, I would try and discourage her if I could.
I agree.
I don't know. With teaching, you're also it's not just affecting you.
So
it's affecting the 20 kids that you have in front of you.
Right. And someone makes a good point. They're like, you're not the asshole, but this just shows the public opinion of teachers. She wants more work-life balance, so she's going to become a teacher. Do teachers get fired?
Yes. There's 3 instances you could be fired as a teacher. Like you do something to a kid, you steal money, or I don't know, I forget the third one. But those are like the extremes, yes. But that's kind of what it takes because we don't have many teachers.
Yeah.
So you could be terrible at your job and just sit at your desk all day and let the kids do whatever.
What about if all your kids are like literally failing?
Yeah, they'll move you around grade-wise.
Oh, before they let go of you.
Before they let go.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of stories I could tell on those.
Let's damage generations.
Pretty much.
Before we fire you.
And a lot of times they won't do it unless you're in a testing grade. So like if you are teaching grades 3 and above, they have state tests, right? You have the data. So if your class doesn't do well, maybe we're going to move you out of a testing grade and we're going to put you in first grade or kindergarten or, whatever. So that way your performance doesn't affect the scores.
Oh, okay.
So
they can kind of balance it another way.
To a point. So a lot of times you'll see is teachers who you kind of know who don't perform well if they're being moved around a lot.
Right.
Unless they, of course, request it. Then that's different.
Yeah.
But
that's usually a sign.
Yeah. Especially when it comes to testing.
So usually I ask the guest to give a tip to someone in their position, but I'm going to ask you kind of for 2.
Okay.
I want you to give us a tip for someone who's struggling kind of to see like the light at the end of the tunnel and is considering leaving teaching. Do you encourage them to stay or go?
So that's tricky. And I think it has a lot to do with what we've kind of talked about, like your heart. Like if your heart isn't in it, then leave. Like if you're going to go to, and I'm a strong believer of like, life is not made to go to work hating your job.
Right.
So, and it's not worth hating it just for the money. And not that teachers get the money, but that's not worth being miserable. So if you're miserable every day and you don't see any good thing about your job, then leave. Because I'd rather have an unqualified coworker who I could help than someone who's miserable.
Right. Okay.
So, and hates their job and doesn't want to do anything and, you know, all that. So I think it's a big, but you got to listen to your heart and you can't go off of what other people are telling you. Because trust me, if you listen to all the negatives, you'd never find a positive. But there's got to be something that is in you that loves it.
Right. So what, do you have any words of encouragement for people who are struggling, but like, are like you, they want to stay? Like, do you have anything for them?
I think just try to hold on to
why you're there.
Like, that's been a hard thing for me this year. And I've told my husband, like, if it wasn't for how much I love the job, I'd leave. And I just told him that the other day. I was like, I can't even, because I know a lot of people who are leaving. I said, but that nothing about that interests me.
Yeah.
Like, so I don't want to go to a job that I hate or that I have no interest in just to make more pay.
Yeah.
Or more money.
Yeah. Because I mean, on top of like, or outside of, you know, the classroom management and stuff, you still, unlike other people, still have a pretty good level of job satisfaction.
Yeah, I do. And like, yes, it dips and, you know, there are certain days where it's like, oh my God. But for the most part, I love what I do because I love impacting the kids. And I love knowing that every day I go to work, even if I smile to one kid, like that could make his day, you know?
Yeah.
Or last year I had a kid write a word and he had never written anything for like 3 months.
Yeah.
It's like, that was huge, you know, and you don't know, every day's different.
Yeah.
So try to hold on to that if you can and try and dig deep. And it does take a lot of digging sometimes, but try to dig deep and you can kind of find that reason. And if you really can't, I totally respect it. And like, I understand why people would leave.
Right. Thank you so much for being here, sharing your story. I mean, I feel like I've learned so much, even though I'm married to a teacher. But thanks everyone for listening. You can find us on Spotify or anywhere you get your podcasts at The Second Round Podcasts on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. And why don't you plug your socials?
All right. My craft side business is at Happily Crafty After on Instagram. And then on OutSchool, if you wanted your kid to take a class with me, I am Kristina Summers, and you can search my classes. I haven't put anything up for August yet, but I'll be doing that later. And yeah, I look forward to either getting your business on either one, or I just like being able to share kind of what's going on behind the curtain in teaching.
Yeah, I love it. We look forward to seeing what you post.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.